for those of you who live in presidential battleground states. The TV ads are coming your way.
In the next coming months, there will be a lot of attention on the presidential election. On your TV,
going to make New York City great again, and
in your social media feed,
with one voice, as one people.
Discussions amongst your friends, and of course, that's important. But there is a lot to pay attention to here in Washington State as well. So let's look at the big picture. There is Congress, which is in DC, and the state legislature, which is here in Olympia. Federally, in DC, we have one senator up for election. Incumbent Maria Cantwell will take on a Republican challenger in Raul Garcia. Additionally, all 10 of our congressional representatives are up for election. And with the thin line dividing the parties in DC, you will hear quite a bit about the candidates in the competitive districts of the 8th, the 4th, and the 3rd, as the Republican Party tries to maintain their majority in the House of Representatives, and the Democratic Party fights to keep their margins in the Senate. 2024 is poised to usher in a lot of change within our state. We have had the same governor for the last 12 years. He lives here, in the governor's mansion, directly adjacent to the legislative building. When Governor Inslee decided to not run for office for a 4th term, this opened up the race for new ideas to come into the executive branch. In fact, all 9 statewide elected officials are up for election. In addition to the governor, 3 other statewide elected offices are also being vacated, which leaves 4 open races in Washington State. And these officials work on really big issues, like running our elections, ensuring companies are following Washington's laws, securing a quality education for our youth, protecting our public lands. Historically, in Washington and elsewhere in the nation, more often than not, the incumbent wins the election. So, the 2 candidates for governor, Democrat Bob Ferguson and Republican Dave Reichert, will have to demonstrate to the public why their vision and policy proposals would make them the right choice for Washingtonians. I'm here at the Department of Natural Resources, and I can see the haze from the wildfire smoke from the multiple wildfires burning in our state. This department manages all of our state lands, from the forests to the wetlands, and the Commissioner of Public Lands is also up for election this year. Who knew that this race was going to be the one that drew a lot of attention after the top 2 primary at the beginning of August? In the primary, there were 5 Democratic candidates and 2 Republican candidates vying to make it to the general election. In our top 2 primary, regardless of party, the top 2 vote getters move into the general election. We had a case of vote splitting, where the 5 Democratic candidates together had about 60% of the votes, and the 2 Republican candidates had about 40% of the votes. Okay, now here is when I was going to tell you who won the primary for this incredibly impactful department. All of the votes from Washington's 39 counties have been tallied, with Republican Jamie Herrera Butler finishing in first place with 22%. However, the race for second place is only separated by 51 votes. 51 votes out of the almost 2 million votes cast in the primary election. So that means we are going to have a recount. The winner of this mandatory recount will determine whether the Democratic Party has a candidate in the general election, or whether voters will see 2 Republican candidates on their ballot. And remember, students, not only does the Department of Natural Resources control the 6 million acres of public land and work on wildfire prevention, but they also manage the 3 million acres of timberland, which is used to raise money for our public school system. So, we will have to wait for the results of the recount to see who wins this primary election, but we do know now is that a single vote really is making a significant impact as to who voters get to choose from in November. This is the House chamber in the state capitol in Olympia. All 98 of these House seats are up for election. Some of these races are incredibly competitive, while in some races, incumbents are running unopposed. Currently, there are 58 Democrats in the House and 40 Republicans. The Democrats meet over there in the Democratic caucus when they want to meet privately, and the Republicans meet over there in the Republican caucus when they want to meet privately. While representatives in this chamber hold office for 2 years, senators hold 4-year terms. So only 25 of Washington's 49 senators are up for election. The balance of power in the Senate is 29 Democrats and 20 Republicans. Both parties are spending a lot of money on advertising so that voters will be up to date with information on the candidates. Of course, remember to fact check any information that you hear in the media. One of the more expensive races to watch is in the 10th district between newcomer Democrat Janet St. Clair and incumbent Republican Ron Mazzal. So I live here in the 12th district. So why do I care who represents all of these other districts? Well, the majority party in the state legislature controls who are the chairs of the committees, who then control which bills get brought up for debate. And ultimately, the majority party has the votes to pass the legislation that aligns with their platform. While most bills in Washington pass with bipartisan support, the structural advantage the majority party has in the legislature cannot be overlooked. So these down ballot races actually matter a lot more than we usually think. Finally, this is an exciting year for the People's Initiative. About half the states in the United States are like Washington and have a pathway for the voters to enact laws. To get an initiative on the ballot in Washington state, sponsors have to acquire over 400,000 signatures of Washington voters. This year, there will be 4 initiatives on our ballot in November. All backed by the Republican Party, these 4 initiatives challenge policies put in place by Democratic majorities over the past 4 years. For instance, Initiative 2117 proposes to repeal the Climate Commitment Act, which current Governor Jay Inslee has touted as the signature achievement of his administration. An election year can be overwhelming, but a way to narrow your focus: read your voters' pamphlet, examine the candidates' endorsements, talk to your friends and neighbors, and if you can vote, ensure that you do so. And even if you're not old enough to vote, you are old enough to engage with your legislators. Your voice can make the positive change that you are looking for.